Morning about census, and so many questions have been raised about the authenticity, and when it comes also to the numbers that were released. We've seen counties like Tharaka-Nithi that several years ago had millions of Kenyans having less than 500,000 registered Kenyans, and the leaders, some of them claim that these numbers will also affect distribution of sources. It will also play a critical role when it comes to the 2022 polls. It is a discussion I just to have with the Tongaren Member of Parliament, Eseli Simiu, seated on my immediate left, and seated next to Honorable Simiu is Daniel Juma, the Executive Director at the Global Peace Foundation. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. Honorable Simiu, what is your take on these numbers generally before we break it down?
I think it's important that Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, before they release the results like this, or when they release results like this, they should have some sort of explanatory notes, because some events that we are seeing here are really very disturbing. And if there were explanatory notes, then we would perhaps try to understand them. Because if it's a question of urbanization that's leading to this sort of thing, that some people are moving from the rural areas to the urban areas, then we need that explanatory note. Because without that explanatory note, it leaves a lot of questions. Like if you look at the so-called hardship areas, northeastern, Mandera, Garissa, Wajir, and so on, including Turkana and Samburu, where they show that females are less than males. And yet the population has grown. You see, that sort of clashes, because when females are less than males, you don't expect a high population growth.
So are you also disputing that, the number of female are higher than the ones for male?
It's not adding up with the rate of population growth in those areas, yet showing that the females are fewer. It's not adding up.
All right.
So that's why I was saying that we need an explanatory note when they bring such results for them to be more credible.
All right.
Because as you said earlier, these results will determine the share of resources. Because if you see the formula for sharing by the counties has been changed, and the population now carries a heavier weight on the share of the resources.
All right.
So if that is the case, then the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics must be very careful how they do it.
Right.
Because if we end up with faulty data, and that's the data that's used by the government to plan and to distribute resources, then Kenya National Bureau of Statistics will have let down Kenyans very badly.
All right. So, Mr. Juma, Nairobi, Mombasa, the most populous, counties. Yeah. I mean, it's urban migration, people coming to the urban cities. So, do you agree with some leaders that there are lots of irregularities with this report?
Okay, I don't want to say that, the leaders are right or wrong, because I don't know. It would be okay to sit here and say someone sat somewhere and cooked the figures. But of course, as you know, we do census every decade, every 10 years. And the census shows that there have been, of course, almost a 10 million growth. That's an approximation. But of course, if you took part in the census, in the enumeration, I think that figure, the 47,564,300 million, basically, for me, it would be an approximation. But a growth of 10 million is not unreasonable. I think it is a reasonable growth. If you look at the demographics, because we're looking at almost a decade here, and also the growth of it also shows that we have more women in Kenya. Women standing at 24 million, men at 23 million. And of course, one of the most important things is now we have intersex population being included in the census. For me, I look at the census exercise as one of those ways of helping government to be able to offer better services to the people. But of course, as usual, politicians and Kenyans would always find a way of criticizing something without, looking at the figures. And I agree with the Honorable Simiu that the explanatory notes are very, very important. If those were released in good time, then it would allay some of the fears that are coming from those quarters.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Let's gentlemen, just hold on to your thought. Let's link up with my colleague in Tana River County, Hamza Yusuf. Hamza Yusuf, good morning. What are residents of Tana River saying when it comes to numbers? Because the numbers are also not impressive.
Well, with 315,000 population, of course, many of them are saying they're not happy with that population, of course, because when the census was carried out 2 months ago, what they're saying is they're on a drought situation, and most of them went to outside, of course, Tana River County, look for water and pasture. And what they're saying is that if the government can do a recount of that, or if they can do the census again, that will be, of course, advisable. Let me talk to a few of them and listen their reaction, what they were going to tell us. Habari yako?
Salama sana.
Utazungumza Kiswahili ama Kiingereza?
Kiingereza venye unataka tu.
Okay. So talk to us about how do you see the results of Tana River? 315,000. Is that the population? What do you think?
That is not the right population of Tana River County, because personally I was a content supervisor in Bangale, but when we go to some of the houses, people are not there. They have shifted to the nearby counties. Some are shifted, changed their position to Garissa County and look for pasture and water. Others are in Kitui County, where clashes happen for the last 1 month. I don't think that is the correct figure of the Tana River County, because 10 years ago we have been close to 270,000. We cannot be still at the same rate after 10 years down the line.
So what's your suggestion? What do you think the government should do?
I'm suggesting the government should not abolish what they are trying to do is to add two constituencies. If the constituency has not met their target, they combine two constituencies to become one. I don't like that suggestion. I want the Bura constituency to be independent, Galore to be independent, and the other one to be independent. Yes.
But if the residents of Tana River went to look for water and pasture because of the drought, I mean, that is a fail from their side, isn't it?
No, they are not failed from their side. This is a natural calamities. This thing happened naturally. We did not receive rain for the last 2 years. So these people depend on their pastoralists. They cannot stay where there is no water and pasture. They have to shift to the nearby counties to look for the pasture and water.
So there's two things here. Is it about growth or the government not being fair?
The government have not been fair in counting, in doing their population census, because they did not make awareness to other people to come back. In case of Garissa, and Adam Bara Dualia has did a lot to his people. He shifted all the way from Garissa County to nearby a place where it's called Boka to take his people back to home, sponsor them to be counted very well, so that their population will not go down. Yes.
Let me talk to this mzee. Habari yako mzee?
Nzuri sana ndugu yangu.
Niambie kuhusu labda idadi ya watu ambao tumeambiwa ni 315,000. Mnakubaliana na serikali?
Hiyo ni upusi. Haijahesabua Tana River.
Nitakushikia.
Tana River haijahesabua. Maana yake kiu ukame makambili ndio maana yake kila mtu anatoroka banda ya Mkambani anaingia huko Mkambani. Wale ile wachache iko kwa Bangali. Watu 5 iko kwa Boka. Ni wale tu ndio naisabua. Hakuna mtu ajenda ambayo alienda kwa Kachaka kuisabua watu.
Sasa ni makosa ya nani?
Makosa ni ya gavana yetu, ni ya bunge yetu.
Thank you so much. That is asante sana mzee, nimeshukuru muda wako. That is of course some of the residents here saying I wish they're saying the government, they wish of course the government will look into this and bring back census to Tana River County so that they get the exact figure. Brenda?
Thank you so much, Hamza Yusuf, and I know you are also counted the way I was, and so many questions are being raised about the numbers. And just before we take a short break, gentlemen, I'd like to give us at least 30 seconds each, then we'll come back, we'll continue the discussion. You know, residents of Tana River County saying they're not counted because of the season they're in, and that is a concern that even political leaders from the northeastern region had. They were saying there was need for the government to push, you know, that counting exercise to a later date when pastoralists were not moving for pasture.
Most likely they were counted, but in the wrong county. For example, if they'd shifted to Garissa County for pasture, they were counted in Garissa County. If they'd shifted to Kitui, they were counted in Kitui. But that means that Tana River the population that has been recorded is lower than it should be, so they'll get less resources than they actually deserve. That's what it means, in my view.
All right. Mr. Juma.
I think, yeah, those concerns are legitimate concerns, and of course, remember when they were counting, they were counting you where you are, and that calls for, I think if we digitize the process more, because I think, look at Nairobi figures, for example. The population in Nairobi is very big, more than 4 million, right? But some of the residents of Nairobi come from rural areas. Some of them vote in the rural areas. So, and there was no enough sensitization to ask them to go back to be counted in the county. So there's some little bit of anomaly in that. But the question is, how does it affect the people? I mean, if government is going to use this to allocate resources to the disadvantage of those countries that are complaining, then that is going to be a problem. Yes.
All right. Yeah. All right. So we wait and see what the government will do, because Nairobi, most populous county, including Mombasa, so distribution of funds will play a key role with a lot of political lobbying. Allow me to take a short break, but we still have a lot lined up for you when you come back, including this discussion about the census.